What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 10 tips to make you an unguardable wide receiver. So I hope this video helps you guys out. I hope you can take a few things away from this to add to your skills and to add to your tool belt. But also, fellas, we are going to be traveling out to 15 more states this offseason for 2-day-long quarterback and wide receiver training camp. So next up on our camp tour will be San Francisco, California. Then we're going to head down to Orlando, New Orleans, Charlotte, Dallas, the DMV area, St. Louis, Honolulu, Boston, Cleveland, Austin, Texas, Seattle, Washington, Newark, New Jersey, Denver, Colorado, and Los Angeles, California. So we are now taking signups for all of these camps, fellas. So if you guys are local to these spots, feel free, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out to our camp. It's 8 hours total of work, so I hope you could check that out. Very first link below. Let's get started. So first tip to make you a better route runner is to have no indicators with what you are doing. So what is an indicator? So an indicator is exactly how it sounds. It lets this DB know that you are going to be making a break. So if you're running up into a route and you give an indicator, that can be one of three things. So an indicator could be a change in your pad level. So like, let's say, for example, this wide receiver running up into the break. You see how he keeps the same consistent pad level from start to finish. If you took a picture frame of him right here at the start of the route and took a picture frame of him at the top of the route, it would be the exact same pad level. And that is what we want on every single route. From a 5-yard hitch to a 15-yard comeback, you have to keep that same body language. Because a disciplined DB, where are his eyes going to be? His eyes are going to be on your hips, watching your hips. So if he's looking at your hips and he sees your hips rise up, he sees your chest rise up, what do you think he's going to do? He is going to expect a break. So make sure that we keep a good body language. Number two, a second indicator on your route is changing up your stride length. So a lot of wide receivers struggle with this because it's not an easy thing to do. It's hard to make a cut. It's hard to break down when you are running full stride. So a lot of wide receivers will run a route and, like, let's say this breaks at like 15 yards. And then when they get to like 11 yards, they shorten their stride. They start taking all these choppy steps. That's a dead indicator. That is a dead giveaway to a DB that a route's going to happen, that you're about to make a break. We have to maintain the same consistent stride and, last but not least, the same consistent speed all the way up into the break point. So if you can do those three things, you can run hard, you could keep a good pad level, you could keep a good stride. That gives the DB no choice but to have to commit to what? The fade. And on every single route, we are always trying to sell fade and making him think 9. So first tip to make you a better route runner, do not give away any indicators. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Everything is a fade until it is not a fade, fellas. Great route here by this wide receiver and sitting right down. All right, so now this next example here, second tip to make you a better unguardable route runner is knowing how to snap down. So what is snapping down? So let's watch this router from Ocho Cinco. So he snaps down. This is a great example of him dropping his hips violently into a cut. So how many of you, I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably heard from the time that you were, whenever you started playing receivers, 7, 8 years old, to beat the drum. Right? So what does that exactly mean? My definition of beating the drum is when you get up to a break point, instead of you dropping your hips quickly and being violent, what guys will do is they chatter their feet and move their hands as fast as they can. That is wasted time and that is wasted motion. Against a talented DB, that is not going to work. Against a crappy DB, fine. Do whatever you want because I'm not trying to get you ready for that. I'm trying to get you ready for a DB who knows what he is doing. And you have to eliminate as much wasted time as possible at the top of the route. So snapping down is a great way to do that. Now, there are only a few routes where you do this on. It's like a curl, a comeback, a dig occasionally, sometimes an out route occasionally, maybe a whip route. But anytime you have to drop your hips and sink your hips. So I call it a level change. It's when you guys break on a specific step. They call this the trigger step, where you snap down. What I like to say is you want to try to bring your chin to your knee. Pretend like your chin has got a string attached to it and somebody is pulling the string straight down. Because that level change with your body and that drop of your hips is what can bring you to balance. That balance position right there is how you guys are able to stop when not giving away any indicators. Because like I said in the last example, it's very hard to break running full stride, running full speed. Not a lot of people can do it because they don't have this hip drop technique down. So this requires a lot of things. I don't recommend you to go out there and try to do this if you're, a 13 wide receiver who's never played before, because you're probably not going to do it. You need to develop leg strength. You need ankle stability, knee stability, hip flexibility and mobility to be able to drop like this. So how you can work on that is by doing realistic on-field drills that will consistently build on these habits. If you guys want some on-field drills, leave in the comments below and I can send you a link to some drills that we have on this YouTube channel that will help you out. But make sure, fellas, that we know how to snap down on those routes. It is a string pull. You are dropping your hips as aggressive as you can, as low as you can to where you can move, and that chin is going to your knee. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. There's a great explanation here from Ocho Cinco, one of the best route runners to ever do it. All right, so third tip to be an unguardable route runner is how you guys can avoid slipping at the top of the route. So many wide receivers lose separation at the break because they will slip. They will get up to the route, they will start to snap down, they'll start to make a single speed cut, and they will slip because their feet get outside of their frame. So this is an example here from Kyle Phillips, rookie wide receiver with the Tennessee Titans. And this is him not slipping on a route where a lot of wide receivers would slip. So let's play at full speed. So he snaps down like we've always talked about, and he's able to get out of this break with a ton of balance. So anytime that you're running a hitch route, anytime that you're running a curl, a dig, anything like a stop route where you just stop right on a dime, wide receivers are very anxious to get out of the break with their upper half first. So what do I mean by that? I mean that wide receivers love to turn rather than come to balance first. So you see when Phillips snaps down here, snaps on the inside leg, I want you to watch his feet. His feet never go outside of his frame. What do I mean by that? His feet never go outside of his shoulders because that is a balanced position. A lot of the times what wide receivers will do is they'll snap down on this inside foot, they'll snap, and then because they know the quarterback is throwing it on time, they'll turn their head, they'll turn their body. Meanwhile, their feet are still moving, and then those feet will, instead of being here underneath our shoulders, the foot will be here. And that leg can extend, putting a lot of pressure on your knee, your Achilles, and it can make us slip. And when we slip, we're off balance, and that gives the DB time to recover and make a play. So to get balance, fellas, you just have to think of it. Your steps are powerful. Your steps drive you out, not my upper body turns me out of the break. So that's exactly what Phillips does right here. He snaps down, he's able to drop his hips, but he keeps his feet inside of his frame. That is what we want to do. Let's be powerful with those steps and use those steps to drive me out or to put the brakes on after I get low. If you guys try to just stomp super hard and you didn't snap down like you should and actually get low and bring that chin to the knee, like we talked about in the last example, that will put also a lot of pressure on your ankles and your knees, and that could also cause some slippage as well. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. So third tip, fellas, make sure that your feet drive you out of the break. It is not about turning. It is about letting your feet push you out. Okay, so fourth tip to being a great route runner, an unguardable route runner, is to mainly take what the DB gives you. So you got to be comfortable. And there are situations for it, fellas, where you may have to, force an outside release. It must be a must outside release type play, especially on a fade route. But there are a lot of situations where you have to take what the DB gives you, and you can't be afraid to take an inside release on an outside breaking route, take an outside release on an inside breaking route. So this is a great example of this. So this is a fade route where the DB keeps outside leverage. So if a DB keeps outside leverage, we got to be completely content if I have a fade taking an inside release. So I don't understand why this DB kept outside shade, because this is the bottom of the numbers and this is where the wide receiver is. And honestly, a lot of times when a receiver lines up like this, what's he probably trying to run? An inside route, because he's so far towards the sideline. But he ends up running a fade, so it works out. This DB probably should have been inside shade. But I can't just bank on that. I have to be able to react to what the DB does. So when he comes off the ball here, he attacks this DB, sees the DB kind of shades to the outside, maybe holds his leverage to the outside a little bit. Okay, that's fine. I could take the inside release on any route, whether it's a post route, whether it's an out route, whether it's a fade route. I have to get comfortable with that. Now, there are some play concepts, fellas, where it's called an MOR, which is a must outside release, right? MOR. And usually that's like when you have a fade route and the slot receiver's running a 5-yard out. Your job is to release outside to take the corner out of there, so he can't play both the 5-yard out and the fade by staying outside shade. So there are some cases you have to release outside. But the fourth thing that I need to get across to you guys is do not be afraid to take it. When a DB is lined up in press, he is supposed to protect the specific leverage. And like I said in the beginning, I'm trying to get you guys ready for a disciplined DB. Not a DB who's not very good, a disciplined DB. So let's say this DB's lined up a little bit shaded to the outside. His sole purpose is to protect the outside. Do not let this guy go outside. So if you try to force a release, he's just going to go with you, get hands on you, and squeeze you to the sideline. Now the QB really won't have any room. On any kind of outside breaking route, the QB needs room. So an out route, comeback, corner, he needs room to lead you, to throw you away from the defense. So if I'm running a fade and he's outside shade, let's just take the inside release. Because now if I restack him, at least I have some space to the outside. But if you are going to take the inside release, you better be able to restack. Because if he just goes here and he just takes off and he doesn't swat the hands, he doesn't dip the shoulder, and he just keeps on running to the inside, the only reason a DB's outside shade is, yes, to protect the outside, but because he has help to the inside. So he has help over here. There's a safety over here. So if you don't restack, you're in trouble. You're not going to get the ball. Quarterback shouldn't even throw you the ball on that. But if you can restack, there is literally no difference between taking an inside or an outside release. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Do not listen to the fact when people say, oh, if it's an outside route, you must take an outside release. You should be able to run any route with an inside or an outside release. It is based on the DB and how we react off of him. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the fifth tip to be an unguardable route runner is on double moves. It is not just about your eyes. Okay, now I know everybody's probably like, I've been told my whole life when I'm running, like a slant and go and out and up. Oh, I got to sell the route with my eyes. I have to peek back to the quarterback. That is not 100% of the time the main thing you have to do. There are times where, yes, I like the eyes going back to quarterback. I'm not saying don't do that, but there are other things that play just as important of a role, and that's what you want to emphasize too. So let's play this full speed. So this is an example of a sluggo where the wide receiver does not look back to the QB, but he's still able to get separation, and he's still able to win because he did two out of the three things correct that you need to do on a double move. So this is slant and go. When you break on a slant route, the terminology that a lot of people say is like, oh, you got to run the first route first. You have to run the slant first. I couldn't agree more. But when you break to that slant, you cannot change speed and you cannot change stride. Very similar to the first thing we talked about. You guys cannot run a 15-yard comeback, get to 10 yards, and chop your stride. Just like how on a sluggo, you can't break to the slant and actually sell like you're running a slant with choppy steps. When you break to that slant, you better be running full stride, full speed, because that DB is looking for a change in speed. They literally coach DBs up on this. When a receiver changes speed or stride, expect a double move because they're not getting the ball if they're chopping their speed down and they're chopping their stride down. So now, another thing. You see how the easy answer would be, oh, this DB put his eyes in the backfield. He shouldn't be looking there. He should be watching the receiver. But as a receiver, my mindset needs to be, I'm going to run this route so well that I'm going to make him put his eyes in the backfield because he's going to expect the ball. And that it comes from committing your shoulders and your hips, your body language. It's very similar to selling fade. It just all comes down to being a salesman. So on this double move, you got to commit. Your hips and your shoulders have to say slant. I can't tell you how many times guys will look back with their eyes to the quarterback, but that in this case, their left hip, their left shoulder will be facing upfield, and this DB's all over it. They're like, oh, well, I saw with my eyes. Yeah, but you didn't commit. You have to commit with speed, stride, body language, and I personally would say the eyes, but that's not the most important thing. I think speed and body language are. So make sure we know that when it comes to my double move routes, fellas. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job here by this wide receiver being able to get space on that double move, sell it, and run full speed. All right, so now next tip to help you become an unguardable wide receiver is to have that throw-by move in your toolbox. So it's Devontae Smith running this like stop route, and he uses this throw-by move. Now, I personally like this throw-by. I mean, I like it on a stop route, don't get me wrong, but I like it also on a dig, a post. I like it on anything inside break. Well, honestly, anything outside breaking or inside breaking when the DB is like to the side of the break. Let's put it that way. So let's watch this full speed. So he's running this stop route. He takes an outside release against inside shape press, and he throws by to come back to the ball. So let's talk about it. When you were right here, and let's say, for example, like, I don't know, let's say DB's lined up inside shade. Let's go back to the very beginning. DB's lined up inside shade press, right? And let's say you have to run like a dig route. Remember we talked about it with the fade. You have to take what the DB gives you. So he's inside shade for a reason, right? He's trying to protect the inside. He does not want to give up the slant, the dig, the post. He doesn't want to give up any of that. He's trying to force you to the sideline because the sideline is the extra defender on the field. So when I come off the ball, I need to have a plan for that. My plan should be like similar to the fade. Yeah, I want to attack him maybe, and my goal should be to restack. But if he plays it well and he doesn't restack, this throw by is a great thing that I could do. So this is an example of this DB playing it well. We're not able to restack. He is literally hip to hip with me, as I like to say. So when he's hip to hip, and let's say you have to run a dig, you could do the exact same thing Devontae Smith does right here. You put your hand on the back of his shoulder or the back of his hip. And when you could do that on a dime and drop your hips at a dime, that can get you a lot of separation. You can almost use him as like a wall to push off of, or like to get leverage, if you will, to slip back underneath, or to just put the brakes on like Smith did right here to be able to catch this route. That is a textbook example there of using that throw by move. Now, a mistake that guys will make is that they'll be using this throw by, but like let's say the break point, where's this break point at? Yeah, like the break point's here, right? You see this yard line. Now, a lot of guys will put the hand on the shoulder or the hip of the DB like 2 to 3 yards before the break actually happens. Now, the issue with that is that you're telling the DB, hey, I'm going to throw you by. You got to do it at the last possible second. On a dime, you were throwing this guy by. So as soon as he got to the break point, as soon as he started to break, it's like he's putting his hand on a wall. And that is how that throw by move is executed, and that is how it's successful. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Smith attacking, pushing up vertical and getting that DB to flip, and then swatting him by to win on that stop route using that throw by move. All right, so the next thing that you have to be able to do as a wide receiver to be unguardable is you have to be able to finish you got to finish the play. Okay, so you got to be able to finish the play. And what I mean by that is you got to make those tough catches. So wide receivers, guys, you can get a lot of separation, but you can kill yourself with that catch and make a DB look real good by not doing the things you need to do when that ball is thrown your way. So this is a clip from Garrett Wilson, and this is a great example of how you guys can catch in traffic. It's not just about route running. You have to be able to finish the play. So let's play this full speed. So he comes off here, ball is thrown to him, and you see how he fights for this catch and rips that ball away. That is textbook right there when it's in traffic. So catching in traffic, like let's say you're running a dig, you got a linebacker right here, maybe you get a safety over the top, and that ball is thrown into a really tight window. You have to be able to catch that thing and secure it. Don't make the defense look better than they are. So when that ball is thrown to Garrett Wilson right here on this stop route in traffic, you see how he goes up strong. He is going up with strong hands. It's not something he thinks about. That's something that he reps constantly in the offseason when he's working out. He goes up with strong hands. His eyes are going to the ball. He is making sure he secures it. Now, that's the easy part when it's catching traffic, when it's a jump ball. They cannot guard you if you do this. If you rip that ball away and use your body as a shield. So when he catches that ball, you see what he does. He rips it away. He's violent to the tuck of it. He is putting his body between the defender and the ball. That is what you have to do, fellas. When you can rip that ball away, you can use your body as almost like a shield almost. That guy can't make a play. And that's how you finish the play. That's how we don't make that defense look better than they actually are. We get separation, but we maintain it by obviously accelerating out of the break, things like that, but also finishing with the catch. None of this stuff matters if you can't finish. So make sure, fellas, when we catch that ball, jump ball, catching traffic, guy all over you, guy grabbing your arm, you secure it strong and you rip it away and use your body as a shield to the defender. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Wilson finishing on this play and being able to rip that ball back and secure the catch. All right, so now next example here. This tip to make you a better route runner is to get you faster, right? So a lot of times, everybody can do the releases off the line. Everybody can do the fancy footwork, all that stuff. But sometimes it's just flat out slow. Some of these receivers can do it, but it's just flat out slow. They don't know how to get explosion off the line. And you have to take something called either a prep step or a kick step. That's at least my terminology for it. I know there's a lot of different terminology out there. So let's play this full speed, and then we'll break it down. So this is Demaryius Thomas, and he's going to be using this prep step, as I call it. So a prep step is like a lot of people will say, oh, it's a false step. It is not a false step. It's a part of the release. I'll say this time and time again, and people still talk about it, say, oh, it's a false step, you shouldn't do it. And I'll show a number of NFL examples on it, and people still say it's wrong. When you see the best guys in the world all doing something, like all of them, when they all do something, you should probably try to add that to your game. I equate it to like quarterbacks. No two quarterbacks throw the ball the exact same, but they have different parts of their motion that is pretty similar that works for everybody, and that's what you should try to apply to your game. So same thing when it comes to the receiver position. So this step right here, like I said, it's not a false step. Your coaches will say it's false step. It's not. It's a part of the release when you get press. If Cromartie was like maybe like 10 yards off and you're doing this, that's when it's a false step, and I get on board with that. But when it's press, you need something to generate explosion to move this DB. So this little prep step right here is a way to do that. Now, pretty much essentially a prep step is you pick up your front foot and you put it down maybe like 3 inches back from where you started. Now that minute step that you take right there creates a lot of energy because that step gives you balance, but it also allows you to push off of that foot and throw to the outside. Because when you want to get separation against a press coverage DB, you can't just like attack him inside of his frame. You can't just like lean with your head and your shoulders. You actually have to step outside of his frame. You actually got to make him move or make him hesitate. But if you do that and it's slow, there's no benefit. You have to create some explosion. So that's what that prep step does. That prep step allows you to push and actually throw your hip, step outside the frame with some explosion and with some balance. And that balance and explosion is what can get this DB to jump outside, and that is what can get you some separation and be able to win. So make sure, fellas, you either add something like a prep step or a kick step to your game to get faster off the line. Now, you might ask me, what is a kick step? So a kick step is another heavily criticized one, but that's where if you don't like this prep step, because if you don't like it, you don't have to use it. It's just a way to get some explosion. There's another way. You could take this back foot and kick behind your front foot. So you would take this foot and step almost like maybe here, and that's a way to kind of like load your hips up and like springboard them outside. So you could do it on the exact same release. You could do it pretty much in any situation against press. It's just a way to get speed. Because when you face a talented DB, dude, you cannot be slow. You can't just take this weak step to the outside and then just try to run across his face. You need some explosion, and you need to actually step there. Let's play this thing full speed one more time. Great job using that prep step and being able to throw his hip to get separation on that slant route. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about here is football route running IQ. So a lot of wide receivers do not know how to do this, but what it is you got to understand coverages. And we've talked a little bit about it. We talked about it on a few different occasions on this page especially. So when we have a guy who's inside shade and he's off about maybe 8 yards, and you got to run like a post route. If I'm running a post route and he's inside shade 8 yards, I cannot screw up the spacing of the play by trying to attack him. You have to take what he gives you. That's the same thing that we talked about when we were facing press coverage. Press coverage, off-man coverage, zone coverage. Those are all 3 different coverages, but in terms of leverage responsibilities, it does not change. They're just a little bit further away. You just have to know how to attack it, and that's where your football IQ comes into play. So this DB's inside shade. Remember when he was pressed and he was inside shade? What was he trying to take away? He was trying to take away the inside. He didn't want to give up the slant, didn't want to give up the post. He's trying to force you outside because that's where his help is. So now that he's 8 yards off or 6 yards off, do you think it changes? No, it does not change. It's the exact same thing. He's just further away. So when you had to run a post route and he was pressed up, you would have attacked him, taken what he gives you, which is the outside release, try to stack him and break, or we would slip under and throw by. So same idea right now, but you take what he gives you. You don't have to worry about a release. You just go straight at that outside shoulder. Because if you go right at that outside shoulder and you do what you need to, like we talked about in the very first tip, selling vertical, running full speed, running full stride, good pad level, what do you think he's going to eventually have to do? He's going to eventually have to play the fade, and you can slip underneath just like how you would against press. So you have to take what the DB gives you. Understand that football IQ and understand how to beat those different coverages. That's how you can be successful. Now, some of you might ask me, well, why wouldn't I just stem him? Why wouldn't I just square him up and attack his midline? Remember off the line when he was in press coverage inside shade, what was the whole reason we would attack his leverage? So he would keep his leverage, right? Because his whole goal is to prevent the inside. So if you come off the ball and your only plan of action is to stem and square him up, what do you think he's going to do? Weave, keep his leverage. And then when you run that slant, when you run that post, you're running right into him, number one. And imagine if you had to run this post right here, and let's say there was like a dig on the opposite side of the field. But instead of running it how you should, you stem inside and you break off on the post. You're going to run right into the dig. The spacing of the play is off. People can look real good in one-on-ones doing that. T-shirts, shorts, nobody else out there. But when the pads come on, 11 on 11 and spacing matters, not a lot of people can do that. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Diggs, attacking that outside shoulder and understanding how to win on that post. All right, so last example here that I want to go over is how you can pair your routes together. So the last tip to being an unguardable wide receiver, make your routes look the same. Sounds pretty simple, and you can get very creative with it. So let's play at full speed. So this brings us back to pretty much everything that we've talked about in the very beginning. What do you want to make all your routes look like? From a 5-yard hitch to a 15-yard comeback, a fade. Everything's a fade till it's not, right? So that's very it's not vanilla because it works for everybody, but there are some guys who can be a little bit more creative in terms of selling their routes. And this is a perfect example of that. So remember how we talked about, so outside shade, man coverage, and you had to run like a 10-yard out. Would you force the outside release? No, because he would squeeze you outside, just like that fade route that we talked about earlier. So if he's outside shade and you have to run 10-yard out, you would take the inside release, you would get him to flip his hips and run with you, and you would slip underneath. You'd throw him by if you didn't restack. Right? Just like that Devontae Smith clip that we looked at. You would use that throw-by move. So now what Thomas does in this example is he does something called a fake throw-by. He's trying to make his route, his dig route, look like not just a fade to a certain point, but also an out route. And this is very, very creative route running that not a lot of people can get down. So what he does here is he swats him by, does that same throw-by, hand on the back of the shoulder like we talked about, and he slips under, selling like he's doing a throw-by move. They call this a fake throw-by. So he fakes the throw-by move. He gets to the blind spot of the DB, gives him a little head fake, and swats it off and is able to get a ton of separation because he made his routes look the same. Fellas, everything's a fade till it's not. And for those creative guys, you could start playing around with it. You could start pairing routes together. And that is when it can get real fun, and you could get a lot of separation as a wide receiver. So the 10th thing that's going to make you an unguardable route runner, make sure you pair your routes together. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Michael Thomas, pushing vertical inside, swatting him by, getting to that blind spot, and then winning on that dig. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. For those of you that stayed the entire time on this video, I really appreciate it. I know it's a long one. I know it's a lot of information, but we really appreciate this support. And if you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always get back to you guys. We read and respond to almost every comment, so we appreciate it. And again, fellas, if you guys are local to one of the 15 states that we are traveling out to this year, we're hosting 2-day-long camps, wide receiver versus DB one-on-ones on the second day, over 7 hours of training like drill work, but it's in a small group environment. It's not going to be one of those big showcase camps with 100+ kids. So check out that very first link below if you want to get some work in with us, fellas. We'd love to have you out there. I'll see you next time.